We moved into Cedar Ridge Ranch on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind of morning that promised hope. Mariama, wife, was easing back into life after her last round of chemo, her hair just beginning to fuzz in, her spirit flickering with the faint glow of recovery. Our daughter Lily, only 8, clutched her sketchpad like a shield, her laughter still a rare visitor after so many nights in sterile hospital rooms. And then there was Duke, our towering, alert, fiercely loyal German shepherd, tail wagging as if he alone could guard all our peace. I served 15 years in the army. Duke had served beside me for 3. Together we had survived deserts, firefights, and the kind of silence that lingers long after both. He wasn't just a dog, he was family, a certified PTSD service animal. And Lily's rock through nights when Maria's pain made the walls feel like they were closing in. But Cedar Ridge Ranch didn't welcome outsiders with open arms. Not us, not Duke. The first knock came on Monday morning. I opened the door to find a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a neighborhood watch sign. Mid-50s, tightly cropped blonde bob, pastel cardigan wrapped too neatly around her shoulders, lips pursed in permanent disapproval. "Karen Dorsey," she said, tapping her clipboard like it was a badge. "President of the Cedar Ridge Homeowners Association." I nodded. "Morning." Her gaze drifted to Duke, who was lying on the porch, alert but calm. She flinched slightly. "Large dogs are a concern around here," she said, "especially ones trained to attack." "Duke's not trained to attack," I replied, keeping my voice even. "He's a certified service animal." She didn't care. You could see it in her eyes: judgment, distrust, and a barely disguised smirk. "We'll need to see all official documentation," she snapped, "and until then, he's not allowed in common areas. It's a safety issue." I handed her Duke's Federal Service certification and medical paperwork. She scanned them like a ticket inspector at the gates of a private club, then handed them back without a word of acknowledgement. "I'll bring this to the board," she said. "But don't let him wander. We run a very tight ship here." Tight ship, more like a dictatorship. Over the next few days, the warnings kept coming. A written notice for excessive barking, which never happened. A citation for aggressive posturing. A neighbor had jogged past while Duke sat calmly on a leash. Then a formal letter. "Your animal is deemed a threat to community safety pending HOA review." Maria's face drained of color when she read it. "They're trying to get rid of him." I knew it, and it wasn't about Duke. Karen had seen what we represented. We were new. We weren't part of her country club brunch crowd. We brought a dog she couldn't intimidate, and a presence she couldn't control that threatened her carefully manicured illusion of power. Lily was drawing on the porch that Thursday afternoon, giggling softly as Duke nuzzled her hand for another pat. It was the first real laugh I'd heard from her in weeks. I grabbed my phone to take a picture. And then Duke barked. One loud, sharp bark. He stood up, rigid, eyes locked on something across the street. Karen. She stood at the edge of her lawn with her phone pressed to her ear, staring directly at Duke like he'd just lunged across the fence. The police cruiser rolled in 10 minutes. Later. 2 officers, young and confused, asked if we had a hostile canine on the property. I showed them the paperwork again. One officer, clearly sympathetic, asked to pet Duke. Duke obliged with a wag of his tail and a wet nose. They left with an apology, but the damage was done that night. I checked the backyard gate before bed, latched and locked. At dawn I found it swinging open. Duke was gone. We searched for hours. Lily sobbed until her eyes swelled shut. Maria stood in the driveway, arms crossed, teeth clenched, silent in that way that only comes from deep, helpless rage. We found Duke near the edge of the woods, cut up and limping, his collar missing. Someone had let him out. Someone wanted him gone, and I had a strong feeling who. I knelt beside him, running my hand over his fur as he whined and nudged against me like he was apologizing for disappearing. But I wasn't angry at Duke. I was furious at the person who dared to challenge our home, our healing, and our peace. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just an HOA dispute anymore. This was war. Duke limped for 2 days before the vet cleared him. Minor lacerations, bruised ribs. The vet said he'd likely been pushed or kicked. No wildlife did this. No animal removed his collar cleanly. I patched the gate with steel reinforcements and a lot Karen couldn't cut with a smile and garden clippers. But I wasn't done. I installed motion lights, cameras, and a trail cam pointed toward the woods, hidden in a birdhouse. That's when I saw it. The game had shifted. Karen had overplayed her hand. Maria sat with Lily that night, stroking Duke's fur, her voice thin. "She won't stop. Not until she has control of everything." She was right. 3 days later it arrived. An HOA rule amendment slipped under our door like a ransom note. Neatly printed, neatly cruel, greater than effective immediately. All dogs over 50 pounds must be muzzled in public spaces. No service animals permitted without pre-approval by HOA board. Violation of any clause may result in removal of the animal. No vote. No warning. Karen had fast-tracked it with her loyal board members, most of them either friends or too afraid to say no. A puppet court wearing smiles and tennis shoes. I knocked on Gerald's door that afternoon. Old Marine who walked with a cane and flew his flag upside down in protest the day Karen removed it for unauthorized pole installation. He was a quiet man, but when he spoke, it landed like thunder. "She's worse than any brass I ever served under," he muttered. "What are you gonna do? Expose her?" He gave me a single nod. "Count me in." Word spread fast among neighbors. I knocked on doors, gathered testimonies, documented fines, citations, late-night threats. A single mom named Nia had been fined for sidewalk chalk, her kids left out. A young couple cited for unapproved sunflowers. Another family, refugees from Ukraine, were threatened with eviction. Overhanging a prayer banner. Karen didn't run the HOA. She ruled it like a petty kingdom and no one dared fight back. Until now, I filed an appeal to the county housing board. Karen blocked it. I tried to bring it up in the HOA monthly meeting. She'd cut my mic, then adjourned early. So I turned to the one partner Karen had underestimated. Duke. It began when he barked again near the wood. Slow, steady, not panicked. He sniffed a spot near the tree line, pawing the dirt like he smelled something unnatural. I grabbed gloves and dug with a trowel 6 inches down. Buried beneath mulch, I found a pile of black trash bags. Inside, burnt papers, broken USB sticks, and 3 crushed cell phones. I brought them home, laid them on the table under bright light. Some documents were half burned, but I could still make out line items. HOA Emergency Repairs Fund, $14,000 Cedar Ridge Greenbelt Beautification Project, $21,000 vendor payment, cash requested, no receipt, no signatures, no board approval, just transfers and scribbles in Karen's handwriting. Maria's voice trembled. "She's been stealing." I nodded, and laundering it through fake projects. But the most damning piece was wedged inside a burnt manila envelope: an invoice from Brightview Landscaping, paid in full for a project that never happened. Gerald later confirmed, "We never got those upgrades." She said the contractor flaked. Now we knew the truth. The kicker: a receipt for a wire transfer from HOA funds to a personal account under the name K. Dorsey. The same week she denied our dog's certification. Duke had sniffed out her rot literally. I knew what I had to do next. I called Marcus, an old army buddy turned forensic accountant for the state. I sent photos. He called back within the hour. "Man, this isn't just HOA corruption. This is wire fraud, embezzlement. You've got enough to take her down in court." The light flickered over Duke's eyes as he sat beside the table, quiet and dignified. He had done what none of us could, broken through Karen's carefully guarded mask. But I wasn't going to the authorities just yet. Karen played dirty. She thrived in shadows and whispers. I needed everyone to see her for who she really was, so I started planning something bigger, something public, something she couldn't silence with a clipboard. Saturday arrived with a thick, golden sun and the kind of breeze that made the trees whisper. It was the perfect day for what I had in mind. I called it a neighborhood appreciation BBQ, free food, live music, and cold drinks. Maria and Lily handled the lemonade stand. Gerald brought his old Marine buddies and their grills. The turnout was better than I expected. Nearly every household sent someone. Even Karen showed up, dressed in tennis whites, sunglasses perched like a crown. She strutted up the sidewalk with her clipboard and a half smile. Duke.com, as ever, lay at my feet as she passed. Her eyes flicked to him and narrowed, but she said nothing, because this time, she didn't know she was walking into her own unmasking. Just before dusk, I stood on a small stage made from old pallets and plywood. I tapped the mic. "Appreciate everyone being here," I began, scanning the crowd. "This neighborhood's been through a lot. It's time we started standing up for each other." A few nods, murmurs. People shifted, curious. I clicked the remote. In my hand, the portable projector lit up the white bedsheet I'd hung like a screen. First I played a slide so simple: factual. Scanned invoices with forged signatures, burnt HOA checks dated for phantom projects, transfer receipts, traced directly to Karen's account. Every slide landed like a hammer. Gasps, whispers. A neighbor from the end of the block muttered, "I paid $500 for that sidewalk repair." Then came the video, pulled from the trail cam Duke had led me to set up. It showed Karen put it gloved in hood in our yard through the back gate just after midnight. She bent near the fence, fiddled with the lock, then slipped away. I paused. The video. "That was the night Duke disappeared," I said. "He was found bruised, collar gone, just before sunrise. This wasn't just a vendetta against our family. This was criminal." Karen lunged forward, voice shrill. "This is slander. You people are falling for fake news." But no one looked at her. They looked at each other, at the evidence, at the years of small fines, warnings, manipulations they'd been forced to swallow in silence. I held up a manila folder. "This dossier, prepared by a certified forensic accountant, is already in the hands of the county sheriff and the housing commission." Karen froze. Her lips parted, then shut. Then came the final blow. Gerald stepped up, holding an old HOA ledger. "She forged this. I was treasurer in 2020. That signature. Not mine. I never approved that transfer." That was when Karen's hands began to shake. A deputy stepped out from the back of the crowd, of duty, but uniformed, invited quietly by Marcus for just this moment. He approached slowly, politely. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to come with me. There are a few questions." that need answering down at the station. Karen looked around one last time, searching for an ally. She found none. Even her board members had turned away. She was escorted out in silence, clipboard still clutched in hand like it might save her. Maria wrapped her arms around me as the crowd erupted. Cheers, applause, high fives. Even Lily grinned wide, holding Duke's paw in both hands like it was a trophy. That night, the neighborhood changed. People lingered longer outside. Strangers became neighbors. Flags returned to poles. Toys reappeared in front yards. And Duke, he lay quietly on the porch, watching it all, tail sweeping gently back and forth like a sentry finally off duty. But I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Karen had been the face of the corruption, but what we uncovered hinted at something wider, deeper. If HOA funds could be siphoned so easily, how many other communities had tyrants like her? How many others were being silenced with fine print and phony rules? This wasn't just about Duke anymore. It was about making sure no one else's family would be targeted the way mine had been. And with every clue Duke had helped uncover, I knew one thing for certain: we'd only just scratched the surface. Karen's arrest didn't just shake Cedar Ridge, it cracked it open. In the days that followed, a quiet storm of accountability swept through the neighborhood. The County Fraud Division opened a formal investigation. Bank records were subpoenaed, and those burnt, buried files Duke had uncovered, they tied directly to 5 years of embezzlement, false vendor contracts, and bribes disguised as maintenance bonuses. Karen's frozen smile and her mugshot circulated like wildfire. Every neighbor who had once trembled at her clipboard now passed it around like a souvenir. The new interim HOA board, led by Gerald, met in the community center 1 week later. This time, the doors were wide open, transparent, honest. I was asked to speak. I didn't talk about Duke's training or my time in the army. I spoke about community, about what happens when fear goes unchecked, and about what it meant when Doug, my partner, my protector, did what an entire board hadn't dared to. He stood beside me, regal and silent, like he understood the weight of the moment. Gerald nodded solemnly. This dog uncovered more truth than any of us were willing to dig for, and we let it get this far because we were afraid. He looked across the room. No more. Cheers broke out. One neighbor shouted, "To Duke," and everyone clapped, Lily the loudest among them, beaming with pride. But beneath the celebration was something else, a question no one had said out loud yet. What if there were others like Karen? That thought kept me up for weeks. Marcus and I started combing through HOA bylaws in neighboring communities. It was alarming, clause after clause allowing near-dictatorial control with little oversight, power without transparency, fines used like weapons, rules rewritten to exclude not protect. So we built something, a watchdog group, a non-profit Shield Dog Alliance, named after the dog who exposed the corruption that tried to silence him. Within 3 months, we launched a website and a hotline. Dozens of anonymous tips poured in, hose inflating landscaping costs, silencing tenants, even evicting veterans on fabricated violations. We partnered with lawyers who volunteered time. We worked with local news stations. And when people asked why we cared so much, I'd just show them a photo. Duke, standing tall next to Lily, both smiling under the cedar trees behind our house. One morning, I received a letter in the mail certified gold. It was from the State Senate's Housing Oversight Committee. Inside was a formal invitation to testify. I spoke before lawmakers in a room colder than a battlefield tent. Every camera and microphone pointed in my face. But I wasn't afraid. It spoke plainly about how a woman with a title abused it, about the emotional toll it took on my wife, my daughter, about how a dog did more to uncover injustice than any clipboard or committee. And when I finished, I placed Duke's service badge on the table. This isn't just about property lines and fines, I said. It's about dignity, about who gets to feel safe in their home. When I walked out, I wasn't alone. Dozens followed, veterans, parents, seniors, all nodding, and Duke, he walked beside me, head high, like the hero he was back in Cedar Ridge. Things stayed different. HOA meetings became true community forums. No more surprise fines, no more secret votes. Rules were revised with neighbor input. Trust, slowly, returned. Karen. She took a plea deal. No jail time, but massive restitution, and a lifetime ban from any homeowner association board in the state. Fitting, I thought. Exiled from the world she once ruled. On Duke's 10th birthday, we threw a block party. Neighbors brought treats. Kids drew signs, and Lily made a crown from cardboard and gold foil. Someone asked, "You ever think about leaving, moving somewhere without all this history?" I smiled. "This isn't the place we moved into," I said. "It's the one we helped to change." That night, after the laughter faded and the lights dimmed, I sat on the porch with Duke. He rested his head on my boots, the way he always had after a long day. I scratched behind his ears. "You did good, soldier." He closed his eyes, tail flicking once. The war was over, but the mission, it was just beginning.